Hi, this is Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith with the National Police Association, and this is the National Police Association podcast. I have a guest today that I have known for decades, and
Yep,
he is responsible for my husband going into the state police and
that's
ultimately
right.
becoming JD Buck Savage,
That's right.
and
Yep,
he's also kind of responsible for me leaving the state of Illinois and coming to the beautiful state of Arizona. And he has had just an amazing career, and so I thought you needed to meet him and learn more about not just his career, but what federal law enforcement officers are experiencing now in this current state of where we are in the country. And I thought there's nobody really better to explain it than Dave Gonzales. David Gonzales, welcome to the show.
no, thank you. I'm glad to be here, Betsy.
So before we talk about your career, I'm going to ask you the question I ask every cop that comes on this show. Why'd you become a cop?
Well, it was interesting. I was born and raised in Flagstaff, like Buck Savage, and I was raised by my grandparents. And when I graduated from Flag High, and I was on my own, I was going to NAU, Northern Arizona University, and I needed a job, and I always respected police officers. The police officers in Flagstaff were tough and fair, and they looked great and all this stuff. And I thought I'd like to do that. And there was a sheriff up there named Joe Richards. He was a sheriff for like 30 years. There's always someone in your career, in your life, that gave you a little hand up that set you for the rest of your life, and that was Joe Richards. He hired me when I was 19 years old to be a deputy sheriff for Coconino County. And you could be a sworn officer at that time at 19. And so I went through a little academy up there, and the next thing I know, I'm patrolling in Coconino County. It's the second largest county in the United States.
Yeah, I
And
just want to say Coconino County is bigger than many states.
exactly. And you'd get called to a bar fight. Sometimes it'd take you an hour to get there, you know? And, but it was really interesting because I was 19 years old. I couldn't buy a gun or bullets. And I'd go to bar fights where I wasn't old enough to buy a beer in there, you know? And if I wanted bullets, I'd have to go ask my sergeant to buy me, to buy me a box of bullets for my gun, and if we wanted to shoot it. So it was really interesting times. They changed the law later to 21, probably because of me, and
And
then
I've seen little Dave Gonzales at 19. I've seen pictures of you.
yeah,
And yeah, wow. I bet people were surprised when you showed up.
well they were. And when I turned 21, I always wanted. I was a big fan of the Arizona DPS. The Highway Patrol's now state troopers, and I love their uniforms. And Betsy, I'm going to be honest with you. I love that Smokey the Bear hat. There was something about that Smokey the Bear hat.
All you state trooper guys love your
I
hats.
loved it. And but I have a big head, so they had a special order. There weren't very many like size 8 long oval Smokey the Bear hats, but they finally got one for me. And I was sent to Tucson, went to college, and then uh, when you sign a piece of paper when you went to DPS, they can send you anywhere. So I'm thinking, oh God, I don't hope I end up on the Indian reservation like Dave, your Dave. I just wanted to go to Phoenix, Tucson, or Flag for that's where the three universities were. And they said, I'm going to Tucson, which was great for me. I was 21, single, and started working the graveyard shift for 2 years, going to the U of A and to be a mighty wildcat. And then after 2 years, there was a big push for narcotics agents at the time. The drugs come pouring across into Arizona from Mexico. It was heroin, a little bit of cocaine. That came about 5 years later. Marijuana coming by the tons, and they were looking for people that were younger, could speak some Spanish, that could infiltrate those groups. And I said, "Yeah, sounds good to me." So I went off on the criminal investigation side of DPS, where I spent the majority of my career, my ranks, except for 2 years as head of the Highway Patrol in the Phoenix area. Other than that, was in the criminal investigation section. And then had a great career with DPS, great organization. And when President George W. Bush was elected. I always knew there was this Marshal position out there, which is a presidential appointment position. And there are, just for some background, there are 94 federal districts in the country, and the president appoints the U.S. Marshal and the U.S. Attorney for those districts. And I knew McCain and Senator Kyle would be making the nomination to Bush, and I knew Senator McCain and Kyle. Senator McCain, I knew him a lot better, and I knew his son very well, Andy. And I worked a lot in the community with DPS and working when I was head of the gang unit here and as a captain and commander. And I'd worked all over the state, on the reses with the sheriffs, with the chiefs of police, with the county attorney. So when I put in, I had a lot of support. And to make a long story short, Senator McCain and Kyle nominated me to Bush to be the U.S. Marshal for the District of Arizona. And I was fortunate enough to stay through all of 8 years with Bush, 8 years with Obama, which he appointed me, which I was surprised because we were different parties. And then Trump came in, he reappointed me, and then so did Biden. And did 22 years as a presidential appointee for as the U.S. Marshal for Arizona. That, in a nutshell, is kind of my career. I had a storied career, and I'm blessed, to do that. And when I left after, was that almost 48 years carrying a badge and gun, it was like, I think that's that's good. Let some new blood come in, and so that was kind of it, Betsy. And I still run in, but I know that a lot of police officers that leave when they retire, they miss it and they have issues with that. I knew when I left, I'm done. I joke that retired police officers, especially command chiefs and stuff, you become plankton. Nobody cares. you know, but uh, I was absolutely blessed to have great and travel all over the country, a lot of countries outside, and especially with the Marshal Service, the things that they do that a lot of people don't know about. Obviously, we hunt down fugitives worldwide, and the Witness Protection Program, and uh, uh, you know, uh, housing and caring for all the federal prisoners, which was a big learning curve for me. Because when you're a police officer, you don't think about the people you arrest, what happens to them, and what you got to do. And I tell you, it is. In Arizona at the time, we on the immigration issue, which is a big deal now, we would have 8,000 daily prisoners in the district that we were responsible for, and they're housed at a federal facility between Phoenix and Tucson, a town called Florence. I'm sure you're very familiar with. And if it wasn't for that facility, we'd have no place to put federal prisoners. And just the care for them, all the issues that go on with them, medical, getting them to court, and then you'd be attacked all the time by groups that didn't like private prisons, and I think they had ulterior motives to try to shut down, the prison that we use, private prison we use, so nobody else would be arrested. And I was told during the Biden administration that they were going to, as soon as all contracts were over, that you couldn't use private prisons. But in Arizona, there was no other choice. There are 15 sheriffs in Arizona, 15 counties, and they said find an option to put these prisoners. So I went to all the sheriffs, and I could probably get 400 or 500 beds from at twice the money. So there was just no way. So they gave us an exception, and this is going out. This is also going on right now throughout the country. And but
And I want to ask you about that because you hear a lot, especially from the left, how terrible private prisons are.
yes,
And I actually have several friends who have run private prisons, and they seem to this patrol sergeant to be a much more successful situation than they are publicly run prisons. Can you talk about that?
yeah, because I was surprised too, and I said, and I'm getting briefings, and they're telling me about where all the prisoners go, and I'm thinking, well, okay, and I like to help out the sheriffs, pay them instead. So, for example, let's just take in Arizona, and this is true throughout the country. Uh, the private prison, this one's Core Civic, uh, is charging, say, $90 a head per prisoner. I'm like, well, okay. The sheriffs, let's say Pima County and Maricopa County in Phoenix, would be the best options because they still have to go to court and all this stuff. It was double, triple the amount, and healthcare was terrible, and all the issues that go on with prisoners. It was better in the private prisons. You had less complaints. Plus, if there were any issues, the marshal service and the marshal me, if there was an issue, I could call the warden of that private prison, and they would take care of situations immediately. So
Because otherwise they don't get paid, right?
exactly, yeah. And people think, well, companies shouldn't prosper for people that made mistakes or in prison. I get it. But I tell you what, if I was in jail or my family members in jail, I'd want them in a private prison, because they are treated better and great health issues that they have. They have hospitals in them, they have doctors, they have psychiatrists. You can speak to your family members and your lawyers at ease. If you go to one of these county jails and you want a attorney or you want to talk to somebody, you're going to be waiting for hours, and they don't care about complaints. You know, So that was a huge learning curve for me, and it seems to work out pretty well. But it's very controversial with a lot of groups. But I think if they looked at the facts, they'd realize that it's the taxpayers less, pay less, and these prisoners are treated better.
Well, and I think that's anecdotal of a lot of things now, that if
Yeah,
people knew the facts,
right.
they'd have a very different feeling about them, right?
Exactly. And also the prisoners. If we had a prisoner, and you get some really bad ones. Let's say you had a gang member, Mexican mafia, all the ones that you hear about. And if they were doing things they shouldn't, I would transfer that prisoner to a county jail, and they would scream and holler. Uh, but it sent a message to that person, and it sent a message to all the other prisoners. You get out of line, you're going to go to one of these county jails, and you're not going to like it very much. And it would settle everything down for a little bit. So even prisoners would love going to these private prisons because they know they're going to be treated better, and as opposed to a county jail. And there's some good county jails. Don't get me wrong, but uh, you've been to county jail booking. It's not good. I remember booking prisoners, and I couldn't wait to get out of there. And I think those corrections officers that work in private prisons or the government, I don't. They should be making $250,000 a year because that is a tough, tough job. You know, and it's like one of the big issues, as going on right now in law enforcement is recruiting and retention of personnel. And in corrections, it's really really difficult because it's a tough job, and it's we think in law enforcement and police departments, state police, whatever, you have trouble getting people, try to get people to work in corrections, which is a very important job, is real difficult.
Oh, absolutely. And we're seeing this everywhere, local law enforcement,
Yep.
corrections, federal. And that's one of the things when you look at the United States Marshals, they are we always I, as a trainer, I always said that the marshals were kind of the cops of the federal
I,
agents,
I think so too.
yeah, and the marshals, people know the United States Marshals from TV and movies and
Right.
things like that. But when you look at what the US Marshals do, it is very extraordinary. I mean, you literally do hunt down wanted people, not just throughout the country, but worldwide. Talk about that and talk about the training involved, the ongoing training involved when you're a United States Marshal.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're really multifaceted. We have the most open um, avenue for what we can do in the federal government, and We deputized state and local officers and also federal officers to investigate, federal crimes. And the U.S. Marshals, they're a small agency in the Department of Justice. There's only like 4,000 deputy marshals in the country. We're very small. But I think the citizens get a bang for their buck from the U.S. Marshal Service, and we're a quiet organization. I have a lot of people. I remember when I was first marshal, they said, "Well, what do the marshals do?" They had a lot of people had no idea. But Betsy, I don't know if you knew, but the U.S. Marshal Service gets involved in more critical incidents, shootings, and than all federal agencies combined.
Mhm.
I know it's changing a lot now with ICE, what's going on with Border Patrol and ICE, but we're involved in more shootings and more critical incidents than all the federal agencies combined. And and so the training for that, and well, I was real big, and the Marshal Service nationally is real big on tactical training and hunting down fugitives. And it used to be the old, you know, look up the old address now, but everything is now so technical also. And you can imagine, uh, you know, financial surveillance,
Facial recognition,
facial recognition
you
tech,
know.
and
Mhm.
and when we can track people. We had one famous case here in Arizona where a Hell's Angel killed a woman that they met at a bar, and they took her to their clubhouse. She said something probably she shouldn't have. They ended up killing her and beheading her and putting her out and leaving her out in the desert. And the Hell's Angel his name that killed her was named Paul Eichheit, and he was a stockbroker during the day and a Hell's Angel at night. And a judge, 2 years later, ATF was doing a wiretap and got information that Eichheit was one of the murderers. He got arraigned. A federal judge released him, if you can believe that. Said, well, we'll put an ankle monitor on him. And well, you know what happened a week later? He, one of his Hell's Angels friends who looked real similar to him got a passport, and he used his friend's passport, and we tracked Paul all over the world, and yeah, Canada, Europe, and then one day under financial surveillance, we started noticing that he was getting some money sent to a casa de cambio, a exchange house in Buenos Aires. On a certain day, we noticed he would get $1,000 or $2,000 uh, being sent to this money exchange house. We thought, oh, that's where he is. So we went down to Buenos Aires, working with the Argentine police, and set up surveillance in front of this Casa de Cambio. And sure enough, one day he came walking up to get his money, and he was arrested. It took 7 years to get him back, but at least he was in jail. Uh, but then, then there's all these requirements and, on the different, with different countries on getting individuals back. Like, first of all, they can't be given the death penalty. And then they have all kinds, in these different countries, they have all kinds of requirements, but we just hold them out and they'll eventually get back. And then we also know of thousands of fugitives that are in Mexico, and we work very closely with the Mexican police, and they get a bad rap a lot, but there is corruption. There's no question about that. But they work very closely with us on getting these fugitives wanted in the U.S. for heinous crimes, and we also do the same thing for the Mexican police. Uh, Getting fugitives that they're looking for in the U.S. and track those individuals down also.
One of the things the Marshals um, has been involved. Well, they've been involved in it for a long time, but that has recently been in the news is the recovery of all these unaccounted
Yeah.
for children.
Yes.
Um, and talk about that for a minute, because it's really been, we for people who don't know, over the last 4 years, with all this, our open borders and things like that, all these children, mostly unaccompanied, have just sort of been lost
They
in the
have.
United States, lost in the system, and a lot of them are being trafficked. And the Marshals has been doing an extraordinary job recovering these victimized kids.
Absolutely. And, and it goes hand in hand, and also some issues with DES in a lot of the different states where these kids go to, and they're recruited. These organized crime groups know that, so they'll recruit these young women and boys, okay, also, and they know that they've had a terrible background. So, and these organized crime groups will get them and traffic with them. So that is one of the big areas that we concentrate on, and also just if you go to any major city, there's areas where prostitution is occurring, and if you see the younger ones, they're usually being trafficking also. And to get them to talk and find out how it goes, they're scared at first, as you can imagine. But once you get them to talk and find out how things are going, but you're right, the Marshal Service has taken this project up for years and years, and have brought home and thousands of young people that have been trafficking in the sex trade.
Absolutely. And it's just it's so heartening to see, because especially now, we were talking about this off the air, federal law enforcement is so under attack, especially,
Yeah.
ICE, CBP. Um, and I, but I want to talk about, not just what's happening now, but back in 2020,
Yes.
when all of law enforcement again was under attack,
Yes.
after the George Floyd situation,
Right.
and you actually had to go to Portland,
Yes.
and the our federal facility there, our ICE facility in Portland, was just as much under attack then
Yes.
as it is now. To talk about what that was like, dealing with Antifa and just literally being in a federal building that Antifa's trying to set fire to.
Oh, it was. This was in in 2020 during the summer of love, you know, and and the federal courthouse in Portland was under attack. So, and one of the jobs of the U.S. Marshals is to protect federal judges and federal courthouses. So, nationally, the Marshal Service sent dozens and dozens of deputy marshals to Portland to protect that courthouse and the judges also. And I had sent from Arizona. Every district had to send personnel up there to support. I think I
How did
sent.
you do that? Did you ask for volunteers?
Yeah, a lot of them wanted to go.
I was gonna say, I would have been like,
Yeah.
ah, that sounds like fun.
Usually they're like, yeah, they're not a problem. They'll go because they're just like that. You know. And so I thought, uh, if I'm going to send a group of deputy marshals up there, I want to see what they're going through, to see what they need. Also, if Antifa comes to Phoenix, I want to know what worked, what didn't work. And initially they did. And a lot of the things that I learned in Portland came in handy when they came to Phoenix. But every night, Betsy, the daytimes were pretty calm. There's a park right outside the courthouse, and starting about 4 or 5 o'clock, hundreds of these Antifa and BLM people would start showing up, and they had their masks on, and they had their bags of tools, uh, whatever they were going to do. And then once it got dark, they were just firebombing the courthouse. We had to run a big fire hose from inside the courthouse outside they were throwing feces and urine bottles at us. They were using green lights to try to blind the deputy marshals. All I mean, it was just like you're in a riot all night long, you know? And then tactically, and all this is being filmed. Tactically, when we saw an opening for a group that were really into trying to destroy it, we'd go out, send a team out, rest 4 or 5, charge them, and you know what happened now. We booked them, charged them. Next day they're out and they're back again, riding, trying to. And this went on every single night, you know. And the graffiti, the burning, and it caused millions of dollars of damage to that courthouse. And 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 the deputy marshals and the police were frustrated because the local police were told not to, they wanted to assist, but they were told not to assist the feds, their government, the mayors and the gov and the local police and the state police in Oregon were very frustrated because they wanted to assist because cops are cops when it comes down to it, and they were told they couldn't help us, and to see to see that, and a lot of them, I know I've talked to many Portland cops that resigned over that. They're just like
Mhm.
you can't do this, and a lot of cops get trapped. When you got 10, 15 years on, it's difficult to leave because of your retirement systems,
Yeah.
and I get that. You know how that goes, but uh, it was a rough time, and and to be up all night when you just hear the banging and then the flames going up and putting them out, and if you do go out, then you're in some real danger. And we did go out when we could tactically. You don't want to be silly about this either. Plus, we knew that once we arrested them, we can get them in jail for the night, but they were gonna be back the same day. So it was very frustrating. And we were also very frustrated, law enforcement, is that no leaders, not on locally or even nationally, said anything negative about what was going on up there. Nothing. There was some leaders on the other side would would harp on, this violence has to stop. But the leaders that had the say so and people would listen to, would not get involved and just let things go.
And
It
fast
was
forward now to 2025, and
it's
it's that situation times 1,000 in so many
it's back
places in the country.
it's
And,
it's back again.
attacks on ICE up
Yes,
8,000%. And
crazy.
it's not just ICE, that we have US Marshals,
Yeah.
FBI, everybody's out there, ATF,
Yes.
trying to help. Where do you see this heading now?
Where I see it heading is, as this country is so split. And it was funny because once there was a change in administration from 2020 into it stopped the same day, you know. And then once Trump got back in, it cranked back up again. So it's political, and I think the hate for our current president is really fanning this. And they'll do anything to make President Trump look bad, whether you like him or not. We still need to be Americans, and those young men and women that are trying to protect America, and and the immigration issue in this country has been a mess for a long time, you know, and uh, and I don't think anybody would argue about getting the worst of the worst off. Sometimes some people worry about that, but I always thought that, and when I hear a politician say, "Well, we need, you know, comprehensive immigration," they're talking bullshit. You know, they don't want any but they've been talking about that. But
Right. What
personally,
does that even mean?
yeah,
Comprehensive immigration
yeah,
reform. Everybody says it. Nobody can explain it.
yeah, and they don't want to. They don't want to. Bessie, I always thought we should do like especially on the the southwest border, like an Ellis Island kind of situation.
Hmm.
If you want to come to America, great, but you're gonna be processed, you're gonna be interviewed, and if you're a positive attribute to this country, come on in.
Yep.
You know, and
Because a
if not,
lot of them are.
oh,
A lot
absolutely,
of immigrants are.
absolutely. On a side note, I was getting have some work done on my house, some tile on my driveway. I have a long driveway. This guy comes and I said, "Well, okay." We negotiated. He goes, "What?" I said, "When can you do it?" He goes, "Well, my best guys were just arrested." And so it's causing a lot of problems in the trade industries and which I get. But that's when you talk about comprehensive immigration control. How about if you want to come work in the U.S., go check in, you know, we know where you are, where you're going, what you're working, and I think it'd be fine. And because it's a tough situation. We all came, our family members came from somewhere, or kicked out of some country or leaving something, you know. But you would think that our government could come up with a situation for getting people here that'll be a positive and give back to this country, you know, and
Yeah,
assimilate.
that is so well said. I'm gonna right now. I'm gonna start the Dave Gonzales for President fan club,
Okay.
and Dave,
That's what I would do if I was president on immigration.
where can people reach out if they want to find you, talk to you, get more
Sure.
information? I mean, you have this nearly 50 years of law enforcement experience. Where can people find you?
Send me an email, David.Gonzales, ends with an S, not a Z, uh, 3, David.Gonzales3 at cots.net. I joke on the Gonzaleses because they say, what's the difference between the Z and the S? And my joke is the criminal side of the Gonzales family are Z's. The good guys are S's. So that's a good way to remember. All
That's
right.
so perfect. I'll tell you what, I can't thank you enough for being with us today.
Oh,
And
anytime.
if you want more information about the National Police Association, you can visit us at nationalpolice.org.
Every day, the brave men and women of law enforcement put their lives on the line to keep us safe. But they need our help to continue their mission. Activist politicians, progressive prosecutors, the ACLU, and the rest of the anti-police forces receive millions in donations from extremist pro-criminal elements like George Soros and woke corporations. The National Police Association is fighting them in courts around the country, including the United States Supreme Court, defending officers who are being attacked for doing their jobs. Additionally, the National Police Association works year-round to pass tough-on-crime legislation to put and keep criminals behind bars. Consider going to nationalpolice.org and donating to keep us in the fight. Together we can win. That is nationalpolice.org.